Good evening. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest and most powerful aircraft carrier, just crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, entering the Mediterranean Sea en route to the Middle East, where USS Abraham Lincoln is already deployed, creating overwhelming American naval presence of 2 super carriers with 140 combat aircraft positioned for strikes against Iran that U.S. military officials confirm could begin as early as this Saturday. This Saturday, not weeks, not months. This coming weekend could be when American bombs fall on Iranian nuclear facilities, and Operation Axios reports would resemble full-scale campaign looking nothing like the pinpoint Venezuela operation, but rather comprehensive multi-week assault on Iranian regime. But attacking Iran no longer means limited regional conflict America can manage through overwhelming technological superiority. Attacking Iran now means war with Russia and China, who have positioned themselves as Iran's military defenders through joint naval drills called Maritime Security Belt 2026, conducted in Gulf of Oman and northern Indian Ocean, through integrated Russian-Chinese air defense architecture being built over Iran, according to former U.S. Army analyst Stanislav Krapovnik, that could shock American and NATO planners who assume military dominance, and through explicit warnings that escalating Iran tensions risks wider confrontation. Russia, China, and Iran have locked their fleets in formation near Strait of Hormuz, sending message of war that American strikes on Iranian targets trigger great power response nobody can predict or control. Trump weighs final decision for Saturday's strikes. Ford enters Middle East, joining Lincoln. But Russia and China, united in defense of Iran, means attacking Tehran activates alliance of nuclear powers whose combined military capabilities challenge American supremacy in ways Venezuela never could. This isn't regional operation. This is World War III trigger, where Saturday's potential strikes cascade into great power confrontation through the alliance Russia and China have built specifically to deter exactly what Trump is preparing to do. Let me start with why attacking Iran means war with Russia and China by explaining the integrated military cooperation these 3 powers have built specifically to counter American strike capability. Russia, China, and Iran launched Maritime Security Belt 2026 exercise in Gulf of Oman and northern Indian Ocean near Strait of Hormuz that handles 20% of global oil trade. This isn't symbolic friendship gesture. These are high-intensity joint naval drills where Russian, Chinese, and Iranian warships practice coordinated operations defending against exactly the kind of American carrier-based strikes Ford and Lincoln are positioned to deliver. The exercise includes multiple Russian vessels, Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy destroyers, and Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces, all operating in combined formations, practicing integrated command and control. When American strikes hit Iranian targets, these Russian and Chinese vessels conducting joint operations with Iranian forces face immediate choice: withdraw, allowing American operations to proceed, or engage American forces in defense of Iranian ally they're explicitly partnered with through these drills. And engaging American forces means war between nuclear superpowers that transforms regional Iran operation into World War III through direct military confrontation between U.S. and Russia-China alliance. But naval coordination is just surface level of Russian-Chinese support. Former U.S. Army officer Stanislav Krapovnik revealed that Russia and China are building integrated air defense architecture over Iran, designed specifically to shield Tehran from American and Israeli attacks. Integrated air defense means Russian S-400 systems, Chinese HQ-9 batteries, and Iranian domestic air defenses all networked together, sharing radar data, coordinating intercept solutions, and creating layered defense that American strike packages must penetrate. This is fundamentally different from striking Iran's indigenous defenses, which American stealth aircraft easily defeat. This is striking Russian and Chinese military systems operated by Russian and Chinese personnel protecting Iranian targets, which means American bombs destroying those systems kill Russian and Chinese military personnel, triggering Article 5 equivalent responses from Moscow and Beijing. And Krapovnik's analysis that this integrated architecture could shock U.S. and NATO planners who still assume military dominance reveals dangerous American overconfidence about capability to strike Iran without Russian-Chinese interference. American military planning for Iran strikes assumes Iranian air defenses are easily suppressed through stealth aircraft, electronic warfare, and overwhelming numbers. But Russian S-400 systems are among world's most capable air defense platforms, with ranges exceeding 400 kilometers and ability to engage multiple targets simultaneously, including stealth aircraft. Chinese HQ-9 systems provide additional layers of coverage with advanced radar tracking. And integration means these systems share data, creating redundant coverage where destroying one system doesn't create gap, because other systems provide overlapping protection. American F-35 stealth fighters and B-2 bombers from Diego Garcia face fundamentally different defensive environment than planners anticipated if Russian and Chinese air defense architecture is operational over Iranian targets. Some American aircraft will be shot down, some missions will fail, and some strikes will hit Russian or Chinese air defense sites, killing their personnel, triggering the great power confrontation Trump's Iran operation is supposed to avoid, but Russian-Chinese integrated architecture makes inevitable. This is Russia and China deliberately positioning themselves as Iran's shield, calculating that American reluctance to risk World War III by engaging Russian and Chinese systems will deter strikes altogether. But if Trump orders Saturday strikes despite this deterrence, Russian and Chinese personnel operating defensive systems over Iran must choose between abandoning Iranian ally, revealing their support is hollow, or engaging American aircraft defending Iranian targets, which triggers great power war. And Russia warning of escalating Iran tensions amid U.S. military buildup is explicit communication that Moscow views American strikes as triggering event for wider confrontation. Russia hasn't just warned privately through diplomatic channels. Russia is publicly stating that U.S. military buildup creates escalation risks, meaning Moscow is preparing international opinion for potential Russian response if American strikes occur. And Russian warnings carry particular weight because Russia has multiple options for response that complicate American operations without directly engaging U.S. forces initially. Russia could provide Iran with real-time intelligence about American strike packages through satellite surveillance and signals intelligence, allowing Iranian defenders to reposition and prepare for incoming attacks. Russia could activate cyber warfare against American infrastructure, creating blackouts and disruptions that complicate military operations and demonstrate Russian capability to impose costs. Russia could surge additional naval vessels into region, creating crowded maritime environment where accidents triggering broader conflict become more likely. Russia could provide Iran with advanced weapons systems after strikes begin, prolonging conflict and increasing American casualties. Or Russia could directly engage American forces through proxy coordination, where Russian personnel operate Iranian systems shooting at American aircraft while maintaining plausible deniability about direct Russian involvement. Each of these options escalates conflict beyond simple American strike on Iranian nuclear facilities into broader confrontation with Russian interests. And Moscow warning about escalation is Russia communicating they have these options prepared and will use them if Trump proceeds with Saturday strikes despite Russian opposition. And China's involvement through maritime security belt drills and integrated air defense architecture adds second great power whose response Trump must calculate when ordering Iran strikes. China has different motivations than Russia, but equally compelling reasons to prevent American military success against Iran. China imports significant oil from Iran despite American sanctions, making Iranian regime survival important for Chinese energy security. China views American military operations in Middle East as rehearsal for potential operations against China in Taiwan scenario, making every American military success a threat to Chinese interests. China's Belt and Road Initiative includes major investments in Iranian infrastructure that American strikes threaten. And China benefits strategically from Russia-China-Iran alliance that challenges American hegemony, making Iranian regime collapse a loss for Chinese grand strategy. So China has multiple reasons to support Iran against American attack. And Chinese participation in maritime security belt drills proves Beijing is willing to position military assets in harm's way, demonstrating commitment to Iranian defense. When American strikes begin Saturday, Chinese warships conducting joint operations with Iranian forces in Gulf of Oman face same choice as Russian vessels: withdraw or engage. And Chinese air defense systems integrated into protection over Iranian targets face same choice as Russian S-400s: allow American strikes or engage American aircraft. Beijing warning through drill participation that attacking Iran risks confrontation with Chinese forces transforms Trump's calculation from managing regional operation to risking great power war with world's second-largest economy and military. And the USS Gerald R. Ford crossing Strait of Gibraltar, entering Mediterranean en route to Middle East, proves Trump is proceeding with strike preparation despite Russian and Chinese opposition. Ford is world's newest and largest aircraft carrier, most technologically advanced warship ever built with electromagnetic aircraft launch system generating more daily sorties than previous carriers. Ford's arrival joining Abraham Lincoln already deployed creates two supercarrier presence with combined air wings of approximately 140 advanced combat aircraft, including F-35C stealth fighters, F/A-18 Super Hornets, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, and E-2D Advanced Hawkeye early warning platforms. This is overwhelming force positioned to execute the full-scale campaign Axios reports would resemble comprehensive multi-week assault, not pinpoint Venezuela operation. And Ford's transit timing proves Saturday's strike window is real operational reality, not speculation. You don't surge world's largest aircraft carrier across Atlantic and Mediterranean unless you plan to use it imminently. Ford transit requires approximately 1 week from Gibraltar to Eastern Mediterranean or Persian Gulf positioning, meaning Ford arrives in strike range of Iranian targets by this weekend or early next week. And U.S. military officials confirming to multiple media outlets that forces will be ready to strike Iran within days, with Saturday as early as possible, means Ford's arrival synchronizes with strike window Trump is weighing for final decision. Ford entering Middle East isn't deterrence posture. It's attack positioning where Trump has assembled overwhelming American naval power despite Russian and Chinese warnings that attacking Iran means war with them. And Axios reporting 6 reasons why U.S.-Iran war is looming provides comprehensive framework for understanding why Saturday strikes are increasingly likely despite World War III risks. First, the long-running nuclear dispute where successive administrations vowed to prevent Iranian nuclear weapon, but diplomacy has repeatedly failed, with Trump abandoning 2015 deal, Biden unable to negotiate replacement, and current Geneva talks exposing wide gaps between positions. Second, protester killings, where thousands of Iranians died during January demonstrations, and Trump threatened to strike if regime killed protesters, creating moral justification for military action. Third, Chekhov's aircraft carrier principle, where having deployed 2 carriers and hundreds of aircraft creates expectations globally that Trump will strike if deal isn't reached, and backing down now contradicts Trump's character. Fourth, pressure from Israel, where Netanyahu government is preparing for war and advocating comprehensive operation far beyond pinprick strikes, with Israeli officials expecting broader U.S.-Israel campaign than June operation. Fifth, the oil factor, where current market conditions with well-supplied markets, low prices, and weakened Iranian proxy capabilities create strategic window for strikes. And sixth, perceived regime weakness after massive protests and damaging strikes last year, making now optimal time before Iran reconstitutes capabilities. These 6 factors converge, creating perfect conditions for Saturday strikes that Russian and Chinese opposition complicates but may not prevent if Trump calculates their response will be limited to warnings and economic measures rather than direct military engagement risking nuclear escalation neither Moscow nor Beijing wants. But Trump's final decision hasn't been made according to sources, revealing internal debate about whether risks of great power confrontation outweigh benefits of destroying Iranian nuclear capabilities. Trump weighing decision means alternatives are being presented. Strike Saturday, accepting Russian-Chinese opposition and managing escalation through overwhelming force and rapid campaign conclusion before Moscow and Beijing can effectively respond. Delay strikes, giving Geneva talks more time despite wide gaps, hoping Iranian pressure from economic strangulation and military positioning produces 11th-hour surrender, or pursue limited operation targeting only most critical nuclear facilities rather than comprehensive campaign, reducing operation duration and escalation risks while accepting that partial strikes leave Iranian capabilities partially intact. Each option has costs and benefits that Trump must balance. Saturday strikes achieve maximum objective of comprehensive Iranian capability elimination, but risk great power confrontation that Russian-Chinese integrated defense and naval presence make more likely. Delay risks losing strategic window that oil markets and perceived regime weakness create, while allowing Iran to further fortify facilities and Russia-China to complete integrated air defense architecture. Limited strikes reduce escalation risks, but leave Iranian regime with sufficient capabilities to reconstitute program after American forces withdraw. And Trump's decision calculus is further complicated by Israeli pressure for comprehensive operation and domestic political considerations about appearing strong versus reckless. Sources saying Trump hasn't made final call reveals this decision is being actively debated at highest levels, with Saturday as potential execution date if Trump concludes risks are acceptable relative to achieving objective of eliminating Iranian nuclear threat. And the message of war that Gulf waters boil with as Iran, Russia, China fleets lock formation reveals how these powers are using military signaling to communicate to Trump that Saturday strikes trigger responses he must prepare for. Message of war means these aren't routine exercises. These are deliberate demonstrations of military capability and alliance commitment conducted now, during the exact window when American forces are surging and Saturday strikes are possible, specifically to influence Trump's decision calculus. Russia, China, and Iran coordinating high-intensity drills in Gulf of Oman while Ford transits toward region is these powers saying, if you strike Iran, you engage not just Tehran, but Moscow and Beijing. And boiling Gulf waters metaphor captures how regional tensions have reached critical point where any spark triggers cascade responses. Russian and Chinese warships near Strait of Hormuz, American carriers approaching strike range, Israeli bases evacuated preparing for retaliation, Iranian regime fortifying targets, Geneva talks exposing wide gaps proving diplomacy failing, oil markets creating strategic window. All of these factors boiling simultaneously, creating the conditions where Saturday's decision determines whether regional Iran operation stays contained or expands into World War III through great power intervention Russia and China have positioned themselves to provide. And former NATO and U.S. officials watching Russian-Chinese integrated air defense development over Iran are raising alarms that American military is underestimating challenge of striking Iranian targets defended by Russian and Chinese systems operated by their personnel. This isn't Iranian military Trump's forces easily defeated during June strikes. This is Russian S-400 battalions with experienced operators who've proven capability in Syria engaging Israeli aircraft. This is Chinese HQ-9 batteries with advanced tracking radars that challenged American stealth penetration testing. And this is integrated command sharing data across systems, creating redundant coverage where suppressing Iranian defenses doesn't create gaps because Russian and Chinese systems provide backup protection. American strike planning assumes electronic warfare blinding Iranian radars allows stealth penetration. But Russian and Chinese systems use different frequencies, different tracking modes, and different integration architectures that American electronic warfare is optimized against NATO systems, not Russian-Chinese alternatives. Some American aircraft will be detected, some will be engaged, and some will be shot down, creating casualties that transform limited operation into sustained campaign requiring escalation Trump hoped to avoid. Former officials warning about integrated architecture are telling Trump, the military operation you're planning for Saturday faces fundamentally different defensive environment than intelligence assessments predicted, increasing risks of failure, casualties, and escalation that Russian-Chinese involvement deliberately creates to deter exactly the strikes you're considering. Trump faces impossible choice. Strike Iran Saturday, achieving objective of eliminating nuclear threat, but accepting risks of great power war with Russia and China positioned as Tehran's military shields through integrated defenses and naval presence. Or delay acknowledging Russian-Chinese opposition is credible deterrent, but lose strategic window and watch Iran complete nuclear weapons program protected by great power alliance American military cannot challenge without risking World War III. Ford enters Middle East, proving Trump has assembled overwhelming force. Saturday timeline proves military is ready for execution. But Russia and China united in Iran's defense proves attacking means war with nuclear powers whose combined capabilities challenge American supremacy. 6 reasons favor strikes. Integrated Russian-Chinese architecture opposes them. And Trump's final decision determines whether this weekend begins regional operation or World War III through the cascade responses great power confrontation triggers. The Ford is coming. Saturday looms. Russia and China are positioned. And attacking Iran means war with both.